You can intro whenever you think we're on.
Yeah,
Just
we are on, yes.
okay, go.
Good morning, everyone. This is Art Matters New York. Yeah. Hello.
Morning.
Good
Good.
morning.
We have another session today. I don't know, Mark. I have no overview what you got from
Yeah.
our group.
Well,
Can you tell us?
well, what we're just going to look at a bunch of paintings today and talk about them. Sai, who has joined us today, was in Chicago, and I'm always interested in whatever people are looking at the anywhere in Chicago, but specifically at the Institute of Chicago, which is great. Oh, love
My
that.
dog.
Which is that's good.
I like that. A new member.
Yeah. Which is, the Art Institute. Art Institute is it's an amazing treasure trove of 20th century painting and I guess late, 19th century as well. Probably everything, right? There's everything there. When I go, I just tend to look at 20th century paintings, but I know there's way more than that. So we'll look at a few things that you sent. Then I saw some stuff in New York. Some of it is like the de Kooning. I'd like to look at again, if you guys don't mind, since it's like the most painterly of the painters, amongst the most painterly. So it's always fun to look at. And anything that you have to share, anyone of you, we can share the screen, you can post whatever you want. So should we do that?
Yes.
Why not, right?
Yeah.
So do you recognize this side?
I'm trying to, I loved that one. I'm trying to figure out who painted it. Does anybody know? I have it. Who painted it?
I wasn't sure, actually. I mean,
David Smith.
oh, see that's why I wouldn't know. Who knew? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's was that a surprise when you saw it that this was by David Smith?
Exactly. It's in the same way I was just so surprised by early Jackson Pollock work. Because when I saw an early Jackson Pollock, I thought, oh, that must have been I think that's a Latin American artist. And then I was shocked. But yeah, this is, it was a shock. But it's just so striking. And
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
what I love just about the room, because in that room is also de Kooning and Joan Mitchell and the Jackson Pollock. They were all in there together, and it was such a when you see them in person, it's so emotional. It was such an emotional room. But yeah, just stunning.
Right. Well, were you saying something, Hans?
When was that done, this painting? Do we know?
Yes, it was done in 1952.
Right. Right.
Wait, let me make sure.
So I wonder if he was a painter before he became, I mean, exclusively, I'm saying, before he became a sculptor.
I think
don't
that's
know.
true, Mark. Yes. I think he started with painting.
Yeah.
I recall it.
Many artists do. I mean, many sculptors begin as painters, and then they find that they just need to go into space, to get the full impact, the presence, let's say, the thingness, or they're just not thinking in flat terms, or that's difficult, but there's others, but I can't name them. Yeah.
What I think is so interesting is that when you look at the masters, they all did everything. They sculpted, they did ceramic, they painted.
Absolutely.
And I guess it's just a different way of thinking about how to educate artists today, it seems to me that people find a specialty that they like, and that's really what they go deep into that specialty.
Well, you're encouraged to do that in art school. They tell you you need to find a style and stick with it. They tell you in series, they, you know, I'm sure they have your best interests at heart when they say it, but you're really not allowed to branch out like that.
Yeah. Do you think that's better or worse? Do you think like institutions should be now like the masters were, you know, where everybody kind of does everything?
There is a slight change that I've seen in younger artists where they say, will have on their resume that they also are a character in Second Life, or that they also have a band, which so many artists, art noise bands and things like that, but
like
they don't hide it anymore, you know. They're like, this is part of my creativity, is a character on Second Life. I don't think Second Life exists anymore, but you know what I mean. Anyway, and so maybe they're taking it back. Maybe the school isn't giving it, but maybe they're just taking it back. I don't know. I hope they have the freedom.
I think what it is that the marketplace is so competitive, and you have to sort of define yourself, you know, in a very, very, right?
Yeah.
And you have to have this sort of exclusive identity, right? And it has to be very, very consistent, and it for a long time, so it's identifiable, and you're associated with a certain way of working, and that's all for, you know, commercial marketing purposes. And you know, it's very market driven, the whole art world. And a very good article I read this morning, I'll send it to you. I forgot, I was going to send it to you. It's from the New York Times about Blum Gallery in Los Angeles, which was sort of on the level of Gagosian and, you know, the major players, how he's closing his doors. And, you know, it's a surprise. He had big name artists, and they're all being, you know, having to look elsewhere. But it's just about the market and how difficult it is to function. And, you know, but it's not blaming, because all these gallerists created that market. They played the game, you know, and now it's like they're pricing themselves out. They can't even afford to, unless you're, you know, one of 2 or 3 players. So, but I think it has something to do with that, with just the way the market has defined art making and, you know, and
education, what happens in college.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I think that aside from that trend, artists are people. Artists are artists, you know, and they can be in bands, you know, in noise bands or whatever. They can dabble in all kinds of things and define themselves in multiple ways. But as far as the art market is concerned, you know, you have to be very, very focused.
Well, if you flip the script and think about the old masters, were they responding to their market as well? Because the church and that he demanded that they. So the market.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it probably wasn't as self-conscious, because there was no avant-garde. Nobody was thinking about other possibilities. It's like, if you were an artist, this is what you did. One thing. You designed altarpieces, you know, or painted for a few rich people, you know, but that was it. There wasn't like you could join a, you know, a rock band, you know, or a band of flautists wearing leotards and, you know, traipse through villages, you know. I mean, so you know what I mean?
But you could be a politician like Rubens. Or you could
or
hold
Velázquez.
Office.
Velázquez was, you know, the head of the court of Philip IV or whatever. That's what he did. That's how he made a living, really.
I have a question about that, because I'm a relatively new artist and you guys are artists. Whether or not, especially when you're doing an abstract, do you find yourself becoming more self-conscious while you're painting? Are you self-conscious before you even start? Because you know that you want to sell something, you want it to, so does it creep in and then you have to step away?
I think, yeah, anyone can answer that. Maybe someone else wants to talk instead of me. Does anyone have a response to that? Or should I just?
Well, I think it depends on what your aim is. If you're aiming to be a big name or a big star or whatever, you push your work to that market. But if it doesn't, if that's not in the picture or it can't be in the picture, then you follow your own way and you have a lot more freedom. And you become less self-conscious, I think. You become more self-conscious if you have to please others.
I think Phyllis, I also think it depends how you work. I mean, there are artists that are, have a studio practice that know what they're doing. It doesn't mean they know in advance every little move they're going to make, but they have a certain way of working that works for them. It works in the world. It may or may not be embraced, by galleries. Many artists, well, the successful ones that we know, obviously, it does work, in the commercial framework. And so I think, I think they're craftsmen, they're professionals, they're skilled, they know how to turn out a product, and that's what they do. But I'm not.
You have to make a living.
Yeah, but that's not to diminish it. That's not to diminish it at all. So I think there's multiple ways of working. In the 50s and 60s, like when you're talking about abstract expressionism, yeah, I mean those people were, creating a new way of being, a new way of painting. But that doesn't happen, every day. That was the culmination, of a century of painting. You know what I mean? It happened in the mid 50s, but it was all part of a very, very large cultural trend that crescendoed in that way of painting at that particular time. You know what I mean? So yeah, if you want to carry on that way of painting today, you're gonna have to sort of do it alone, because right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have freedom.
Yeah, because you're choosing.
You're paying the price. That's the price.
What's that, Phyllis? You say?
I think you're paying the price for the freedom that you have, because nobody knows you, and part of the experience is sharing your work. So what happens? You make choices.
Right. Yeah.
But I think I'm sorry, Sai.
No, I have found it discouraging when a teacher has told me that I need to find my hook, and I'm too new at this to even want that in my consciousness, that I'm looking for something so that people can look at my painting and say, oh, that's a Bode, that's discouraging. And
it is.
It is. It feels stifling. And
I think it's ultimately a very organic process. And even if you are, approaching the art world, in a deliberate way or an intellectual way, you still have to somehow seize upon, whatever it is that's yours, that defines you, but it's an organic process, right? It's not like you're going to intellectualize it or, conceptualize it and then do it. It's trial and error. You're going to play with different things, and that takes time. So if someone's encouraging you, to find your voice, I think we know that, but we can forget that at the same time. We all know that Pollock had his style, de Kooning, everyone has a style, everyone has some sort of identifiable, and that's what we look for, something specific, something new, something different. So we all know that, So we can all forget about it. We got that. So you can forget about it in your own process and just have, create the freedom that you need to discover it in your own organic way, meaning pulling stuff in, trying stuff, rejecting stuff, defining, and that's all part of the process. It's all very fluid. It's fluid. And then when you find something interesting, you're going to stay with it for sure. Like, this is interesting. Wow, this is working. I love this. You'll do it again.
But
So it's more organic than, when it becomes systematic,
but don't you think
it can become boring,
don't you
repetitive.
think that I'm sorry, Dave, that this artist particularly was not painting wasn't doing it for him.
Right. David Smith, you mean?
Yeah. So that the other method, the other media was doing what he wanted or what he was inclined towards.
But I think that we don't know that, and that I think is sort of the rub.
That's true.
It could be that he just happens to be more proficient at sculpting, and somebody wanted to buy his sculptures, and he wanted to, make a living through his art. So I think that it's really interesting listening to everybody. But I think that it's not just in painting. That happens in music. It happens in acting, where you get pigeonholed, you get good at doing one type of acting.
Right.
Or with music, you have a hit and then everybody wants that same type of music from you.
That's right.
I think it's an interesting conundrum.
It is.
Of what you personally, want to achieve as an artist versus, making a living. And I just think it's a very interesting discussion, because I just wonder, does Jim Dine, did he love doing hearts or bathrobes his whole life? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
The most fascinating thing that he could really come up with.
Unless, of course, he was really engaged in all the formal concerns with making a painting, and everything different for him. And the bathrobe was just the thing it hung on. And
it's a good point,
because I'm crossing my fingers because I keep painting these swimming pools because people seem to want them. And then I'll do one more because I love this particular picture. Why do I love this picture? Well, I love these red strings and the pattern in the chairs, and the formal stuff starts to be the subject for me.
So true.
The vehicle.
That's so true. That's a good point.
That's an interesting point too.
But I have
Say that again.
No, I'm just saying that what Linda has been able to do is take something to really find a balance. So she's excellent at swimming pools, painting swimming pools, but the swimming pool itself is not as important as the other pieces in that painting to her. So
maybe it's all important. Maybe maybe there's a thing about swimming pool. Yeah.
I do have a thing for swimming pools, but
yeah.
But, I mean, to all of your points, I could be dismissed as, oh, she just paints swimming pools over and over and over again. And what am I supposed to say to that? Yeah, I do. Look, I've got 7 swimming pool paintings here, and I'm working on another one. But I can't say, no, you're wrong. But I know that what I'm thinking about is, where do I put the horizon line? How much blue can I paint it until it's just boring? It's like.
But that's a great perspective, because that enables you to do is have the best of both worlds. So you're still super creative within a success of a format that's successful for you, which is swimming pools. Hans, did I interrupt you?
Me? No.
Yeah. Were you trying to say something?
You mean my train of thought?
Yeah.
No, I'm still thinking about what.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you spoke.
Well,
Sai, does this? I'm asking. I just wanted to ask Sai if if this sort of answers or at least fleshes out some of your, your questions, some of your concerns.
It does. What it made clear is that everything is complicated.
It's always right. That's why I keep saying,
Yeah.
I keep using the word organic, because it means that it's super, super, complicated.
Yeah. So what stirred up all of that questioning was, because I love Joan Mitchell, was this quote by her, which she said, "I want to make myself available to myself. The moment I am self-conscious, I cease painting." And I don't know.
I mean, she's right. And we all know that as painters, that when we let it just happen, right, it happens. Like, it's hard to, you can't force it to happen. But that being said, she knew how she wanted to paint. I mean, she was an abstract painter, right? Because she was in a community and in a period where this kind of painting was happening, right? So you can be very abstract. You can let the brushstroke be the brushstroke. You can drip paint. So she had a certain language defined for her, right? I mean, at least a certain part of it was formed already. It was a language. And she, of course, expanded the language and she personalized it. But still, so when she talks about freedom, she's talking about freedom within a certain construct that already existed. So she wasn't, she wasn't trying to paint like Vermeer or Rembrandt or Velázquez or even Picasso never did this, right?
Right.
So yeah, you could, yeah. So in this kind of painting, it requires a certain kind of spontaneity and freedom, but the language exists.
But also, I think that, when you paint, for instance, these swimming pools or whatever, it's not only the swimming pool which is interesting. Or, what's interesting is the positioning of the painter in this society. Meaning, when we look also at this Smith painting, which is obviously abstract painting, it looks to me, it's nice, but it looks also boring today, sort of. But the point is, at that time, it was important because it was a position to paint an abstract painting. It was not just approved. Do you understand? Today, it seems like a regular painting, so in a way, to me, But you have always to see when is something made.
Yeah.
Time you have to have a position, a stance, something which you stand for, and that's much more important than the art itself. It is a part of it, So therefore, some people, do very simple things the whole life, and you think, oh, is that boring, But the point is, they want to make they want to have a position to something, and they pack the whole world in that simple thing, and therefore museums maybe buy this stuff because the position is important of the artist, and not the work. Of course, there are several types of. Some people make really revolutionary things, But this revolutionary thing doesn't happen each day. It's not possible. Usually art, it is, even it doesn't look like, it is traditional, even it doesn't look like. It's basically traditional because, just once a while something happens really amazing, and all other things are maybe great, and it's great and nice or whatever, but it's not really peeking out of the whole mass, of artists.
Yeah, it's within the context.
Yeah,
it's the context that makes the determination in a way.
You can also say in sport it's the same thing. Millions of people are running, but just only some people are fast, but faster, and they win, and the whole world. But it's important that the other ones run too. If they wouldn't run, this peak would be not visible.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It would not matter. Well, it would be stupid. Why should we talk about somebody which runs? If not other people run as well. So we you know what I'm saying? So it's important. Everything is important, actually.
Yeah.
In a way.
That's also a very encouraging statement for artists, I think.
Yes, it's important. Yes.
Yeah. To be seen as part of the whole.
Yes.
Well, because they're speaking, as I say, I use the word language. They're speaking a language, and they're developing a language, and they're speaking to each other. So you need other people to to hear you and to respond.
Mm-hmm.
It was also interesting. I'm sorry. It was also interesting there. They had a Frida Kahlo exhibit of her 1 month in Paris. And she said that when she arrived, she was told that she was a surrealist painter, and she had no idea that she was. So the language that they were speaking, they had to kind of bring her into the language. She was doing that without being told what this other language was. So she was actually not pigeonholed, but she was given a word.
They adopted her, as it were. I mean, she was they adopted her as someone speaking their language,
but it was her own language. It was her language. They just made it sound like, I don't know. It was just fascinating.
It is fascinating. It's really interesting the way that works.
It only goes to show that the audience looking at the painting is as important as the painter, I think.
Right.
And you have no control
and
over
modifies the painting.
That's so true.
And also the runner, of course, some people run because they want to become the best. Of course, maybe. But I'm sure that the most people are not running because they want to win. They run because they like to run. Because they get something out from running,
Yes.
And our society made things like into more a competitional thing.
Yeah.
And so because we can make a lot of money out of it and so on. It's but the ultimate reason is not to win, in my opinion. In my opinion. Yes. Of course, it's also not. It doesn't make sense to lose, but it's not. It's something else. There is something else, something intricate, in joy of doing something. And you can do it, and you can do it just in your little studio, and you can. The whole world is in your little studio. It's about consciousness and being a part of something bigger, I think, at the end.
I love the statement about it's also the audience looking at the painting, because again, didn't go to art school. And this was a language, this was a paradigm that the artists in the 50s, they're all in their box, they're not actually thinking outside of the box anymore. They've created a box and now they're all painting in the new box, in the new paradigm. But for me to see these in person, the emotion I get from looking at them, I'm not trained in their language, and yet decades later, I look at this and I am
very interesting. Yes.
In my paradigm, in my world, decades later, I still understand this without an art training. I still feel this painting. Yeah. And that's
well, I agree with you. I think.
And it grows with you.
Say that, Phyllis?
it grows with the person looking, because you're not always, you're changing as a viewer, and that happens to the artwork as you see it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think
you see different levels.
Yeah, I think what happened in this period seized on an aspect that we find that we, an aspect of expression and of painting and making a painting and everything that's included in that as something that's true, something that we can still identify with and that still speaks to us. So even though this is a painting that's now 75 years old, right? It was done mid last century. It still has a resonance. It still speaks because it, as I said, it's seized on something that is, we could say, true, emotionally, with kind of a certain aspect of, emotional expression that, is not narrative and is not identifiable. It speaks on another level. And we know that level exists. And we're still interested in that.
She also was playing on an emotional level, that she controlled the chords of the emotional level, whether it's abstract or realistic. There's something between, for instance, the millions of paintings in the Pitti Palace and Raphael and the leaders of the movement. So it comes through, whether it's realistic, semi-realistic, or whatever you want to call it, that level of emotion that you can't get in other forms, or perhaps in music, comes.
Yeah, it's interesting about music. Yeah.
Unspeakable emotion.
Because this abstract painting is sort of the closest form, let's say visual form, to music.
Yes.
A non-narrative art form, that just exists for the color, sound, timbre, itself.
But
that doesn't refer.
I believe also that in a good art piece is basically this thing in there which is timeless, which has nothing to do with time.
Right.
So you're now basically out of time. And then is an aspect which is time. And when I look at this, I can, we can say this is the 50s, because this patina, this type of a little bit dirty color, grayish, and it's so typical for a certain area, how people, on the whole world, I mean, Western world, everybody painted like that, sort of, sort of. And so there is an aspect of time which really pinpoints it down, but then is the other, it's a balance actually, which is the timeless aspect. And that's what speaks to us, I think, to say, when you are moved looking at it. And when I moved, and I think about, I'm disturbed, not disturbed, but I hate the 50, a little bit, the 50s. I think I don't like art, by the way. But there is still also in artwork this aspect of timelessness, and it comes through. And that's why we can look at it and enjoy it, I think. That also for me, it's like,
So this, who is this? Is
to look it up.
Kooning, I wonder if we can, anyone have an idea?
Karel Appel.
Okay, yeah, right. Okay. So he was working, I guess, in more or less the same area in a different part of the world, but at the same time.
It's interesting to me because of that time period. Because for me personally, when I'm painting, and I'm just all about process. I'm not looking to sell something. It's interesting that in this time period, whether or not an artist is actually trying is mimicking, is trying to fit themselves into a paradigm. I don't know if I'm expressing this correctly.
Continue.
Well, when you're painting and you're like in flow, and I love that Hans said it, because the reason why I'm attracted, for example, still to de Kooning and Mitchell is that I think they were in flow. They were in timelessness when they painted, and it's still coming out in the painting. And when I look at this one, which I found interesting for a number of reasons, it didn't give me a feeling. You know what I mean? It felt like this was still trying to fit into something that somebody else might be doing. Could be completely wrong.
You know, part of that is that this Karel Appel was a well, he was a northern. I don't remember which country. Was it Sweden or Denmark or Finland? Where was he from?
He's a Dutch.
Yeah. So that's part of the difference. De Kooning, I guess, was Dutch too, but he was American. So he came to America at an early age, and he adopted, part of the possibilities that were available at the time in America. Was space, were these, making monumental paintings, moving the brush around. So it had a lot to do with space, possibilities, and optimism in a way. And so this is different in this sense that this is a European that didn't come to, so this to me feels like a European painting. It feels like Miro in a way,
But listen, it has also a thing of art Brut influence, for me.
Yeah.
Art Brut, the whole discussion of Dubuffet, of the raw art and so on,
Right.
Typical of European at that time,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when that was, but it has a feeling for me like, dealing with art Brut influence too, It's not only space or whatever, it's just that it could be also like figure, you could see legs down there, or you know what I'm saying? You can it's surrealism. Surrealism and
absolutely.
And COBRA. Apparently he founded that COBRA.
Yes.
COBRA.
Right.
Copenhagen, that's the towns. Amsterdam, COBRA stands for towns where these artists were.
Okay.
The A is Amsterdam.
Yeah, one is Amsterdam, the other one is.
There's also a clear complexity of color that is fascinating to explore.
Yeah, just those pure pigments that,
the way they interact is just fascination.
It reminds me also like of Eskimo kind of art, like.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Pacific Northwest coast,
Yeah.
Very much. Very
So
much.
what we can say is I think each piece of art does its own thing. I mean, we can't demand from abstraction this kind of thing. We can't demand from this kind of thing abstraction. It's just like it's individual.
Yeah.
As its own thing. I think.
I just flipped through the Wikipedia page. That way he distorts the figure and keeps a figure reference in there in his paintings.
Yeah.
Very peculiar to me. I've never seen it before. I'm sorry, I never knew anything about this artist. So
Nor I.
It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Work. Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, me too.
It
I
has
like the little legs and the eyes and
Yeah,
and its reference to the figure and to the face and to to the primitivism, the simplicity of
Very primitive.
certain I don't want to say primitive, that's the wrong word to use these days, but
it's like a children's drawing also. Children.
Yeah, a children's as well. So it all comes out of Dubuffet and Art Brut, as you say.
Yeah.
I love the way the little legs are actually going all the way down to the edge of the canvas, just like a kid would do. It's so funny. That's really funny. It's standing on the edge of the picture plane.
I think B stands for Brussels. Brussels.
Yes, and so is Copenhagen.
Berlin. Yeah, Copenhagen.
Copenhagen, Brussels, and Amsterdam.
Yeah.
But
when we talk about language, it's interesting that the whole, at least European English, not English speaking, but the European world, Western Europe and America, there was a dialogue. Everyone was interested in all of these new, ways of painting that, integrated all kinds of other languages.
Exactly. And that's an example, as an artist group. I don't know their members, all the, which you have to look it up. But, they have they took a position. They had an idea, about art.
Yeah.
That's why they founded this COBRA group,
Right. They even wrote manifestos.
Exactly.
They even, as to what they believed,
Yeah.
Yeah. This is really interesting.
Oh, look at that. Oh.
I'm thinking, is this what's his name? Is it a Japanese artist?
This is a German artist.
Oh.
Wols, W-O-L-S.
Wols.
Yeah.
And I believe it's called The Unfinished because it was painted the year he passed. So it may be clearly unfinished.
Wols,
right?
Yeah. So we've got we have another European here.
I think W-O-L-S.
Wols.
Wols, right. That's right. Wols. Okay. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Wonderful.
That's nice.
Let's look at that. It's very biomorphic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost an insect.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But then it comes up and it's almost a floral at that top.
Yeah.
That's great. It's a nice piece.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Is it?
He's an artist that we could take it. We should look more deeply into him. He's an artist that's a little off, doing his own thing, on the periphery, and you don't see. I mean, we see his work from time to time, but not that often. There's been no major retrospectives that I can think of. He would be an interesting artist to look into.
He passed when he was only 38 years old.
Oh,
really?
Right.
Yeah, so this is a young painter.
Right.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
This looks like it could be an early Pollock, is it?
It is.
Yeah.
This is the one that surprised me that it was an early Pollock.
Yeah. It has so many Picasso-esque.
Yes, very, very.
I only took the photo of this because I was just surprised it was a Pollock because I just didn't do it for me.
Everyone had to deal with Picasso. If you were a painter, if you were a serious painter, you had to think about Picasso. He loomed so large.
Are there any artists today? I mean, we talk about the 50s,
Yes.
so popular, but is there a single language among American artists, abstract painters today in the same way? Is anybody writing a manifesto? Is anybody, because
no.
I think, yeah.
We live in a different time.
Yeah, Andy Warhol is a very important figure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of important people, but I'm just saying that the market is so fragmented. You could almost do anything. I mean, if you go into a group show today of contemporary artists, you're going to see everything just across the board.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's just
And I don't think, I'm sorry.
There's no cohesive, school.
And I don't think Andy Warhol was the same level of artist as Picasso. I think that he was a brilliant, I think he had a lot to say about art. And I think that he popularized modern, what pop art was. But I don't think in terms of his just level of artistry, I don't think that you can compare him to Picasso.
I would say it's more influential now than Picasso.
Sorry, what?
I believe Andy Warhol is more influential now than Picasso. I mean, because you've got Jeff Koons, and you've got all these people who are working. I mean, Basquiat. You've got all these people that have been deeply influenced by Warhol, and I don't see anybody responding to Picasso at the moment.
No.
But I don't follow abstraction as much as I follow image-based work.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think Picasso, he ruled, kind of. I mean, he was, he was the man. He was like the Velasquez. He was the master of his time. And I don't know. Do you guys think that? You think that Andy Warhol just?
Yeah.
I think Warhol is very important. And
I agree, but in terms of his artistry, in terms of, I mean,
Duchamp, we shouldn't forget Marcel.
That's right.
That's
right. And, because you have Picasso and you have Duchamp, and they are these two strings which go through the last century.
That's right.
And we are talking just about painting, and therefore Picasso is our hero. But the point is, Duchamp is so influential, and Andy Warhol is basically a very Duchamp type of artist,
Absolutely.
with some ready-made and blah 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 things,
That's right.
And I say, of course, I think, Andy Warhol made a lot of very interesting things which are not talked so much about it. What I'm saying? You see very interesting, even monochrome stuff. You see, and so on. He was influential in filmmaking. He was influential.
Absolutely.
I agree, but he was no Rauschenberg. I think Rauschenberg's a better artist than.
Oh, I don't. But let me just say something. Let me just say something about that. Okay. The period of in which an artist can become a master, as you say, may be over, right? So that may have been the result, of a certain trend, let's say, over a number of centuries, right? That may have ended. Now there are just great artists that have that were but they don't fit into that conception of a master, right? Of a Rembrandt, Michelangelo, you know what I mean?
Right,
that may be over. That just may be over.
Okay, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Well,
so I agree with you that Picasso was a genius, and he was a brilliant craftsman and a brilliant artist in every possible way. I don't know if we can have another. The closest, in a strange way, that I think, well, I mean, Warhol was incredibly important, but also Gerhard Richter is a person that took painting and he basically summed it up in his practice, you know, and interestingly, he painted in many, many different ways, almost, predicting, if not just foretelling, the demise of, of originality, let's say, of the possibility of originality and of being a master. It's like he took everything and he sort of brought it to a conclusion, painting, like in a conceptual way. But, so they're all very important people, but I don't think they, anyone can function as a master anymore.
That's the number of artists that are around. Like, I mean, everyone's talking about how many artists there are just in New York and in the United States, and how, because they've seen people get really famous, they're waiting longer to bail on their art career. So, and the arts are putting out more and more artists, and the enrollment is going up, believe it or not, in art school.
Yeah, isn't that strange?
Yeah, because they think they can make a living at it. Wah, wah, wah. And they keep thinking, well, I'll get my shot, and they're staying in longer. So now we have one person master like all the artists. It's like there's too much. You can't even get through a day of Instagram without being overwhelmed. And not every artist is on Instagram, or maybe they are.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Guernica, right? Elements of
yeah.
The only other thing I would say about my my time at the Art Institute was, I looked at a lot of just wonderful art. I was just so, but for some reason I keep coming back to this time period. Again, and I'm wondering why I'm so emotionally attached to this time period of a new movement. And maybe it's something about when some movement is new, when they're just trying to break free of what everything around them is telling them they should be doing, that allows more emotion to be evoked, because their newer stuff just doesn't do it for me. And I'm trying to figure it out for myself, why this time period is more emotionally engaging. I mean, I stood there in front of de Kooning's excavation for such a long time.
Right. Yeah. We can look at some de Kooning.
It has something to do with, because you are a painter, and you there are moments in life which somehow your eyes open up, or your inner eye, and something flows into you which you never expected. It has to do with lots of things. That's the interesting thing about art, that you can. That's what I'm saying also, when you do a painting which you don't like, that you shouldn't overpaint it, just put it away and look at it maybe a year later, and you see suddenly with your new eye, your inside eye, that you did actually something very interesting, which you were just rejecting because of, because you were not open to it. Because there is not really something bad happening if you it's hard to explain, but who should judge actually what is a good painting? Do you understand? It's really, actually, it's a very difficult thing. People talk all the time about quality. Oh, the museum, we can on quality. What is quality? Nobody has an answer. What is quality? Because it's like nicely painted, or like with a one hairbrush, or what? You could make rules, that you can't use this and this. There were rules, For it, I heard a long time ago, that you to paint green, you couldn't just take blue and yellow, and then you paint it green. You had to, 200 years ago, you had to do it differently, a different way. This was a cheap way just to have a green surface, which means a green grass, So, people make rules, they judge you in everywhere, If you have a dyscalculie, you can't, let's say, 4 and 4. You can't do that. There are diseases or things, with people have a dyscalculie. So, of course, you can't become a mathematician with a dyscalculie. But maybe you could, because it's so abstract, a step further up, that you could maybe become a mathematician with a dyscalculie.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that, so there are many different ways of to look at things.
Yes.
And, it's all about, at the end, it's about consciousness, I think, about in a way.
I think so too.
And of course, communication, as the COBRA artists communicated somehow among them and and with the audience, And as you said, it's an important thing. At the one point, you want to show something outside your studio, and people say something, And of course, there are people which say, "Oh, that's so beautiful," or "I hope you sell it," and that's it, And somebody else sees something else and tells you something more interesting, or whatever, or even rejects it, and you can say, "Why do you reject it? Why?" That's also interesting. Why don't you like it? Tell me why. And then people have to think about something then. I think.
Are you seeing this painting?
It is uncommon.
That's Asger Jorn, or what is it? What is it?
This is de Kooning. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Early.
No, not really. Middle.
Middle. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not that early.
Middle.
No.
It's funny. This reminds me of the Wols, the Guernica-like painting. It's.
You mean the Picasso?
Yeah, the Wols.
I mean the Pollock. You mean the Pollock? The Pollock?
No, the one that we saw earlier, the
Wols,
Wols.
Wols.
Right. Yes.
Why does this remind you of the Wols?
On the right side, there's almost like a piece of the body.
That was a Pollock. That was a Jackson Pollock painting.
Yeah.
No, was it?
Yes. Yes. That was Pollock. The colored one with that you remarked looked Picasso-esque, it looked like Guernica.
Oh, that was
Pollock.
That's the Pollock. Oh, wow.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm corrected. Well, anyway, this reminds me of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, there's almost figures in there. You can almost discern.
Yes.
And certainly a lot of movement and space.
I mean, this one is really fun to look at just because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
But it's so beautifully resolved and beautifully done. So it's like there's a kind of a freedom because it never repeats. You can really just scan this whole surface and it's down here, just in this corner, and just see all of these different ways of, creating, space, creating texture, creating, light and dark, interest, scraping, applying, mixing, making it muddy, you know what I mean? It's but all of these forms seem to have integrity, all these different little shapes, always somehow, whether they're specific or not, you know, or whether they morph into other shapes and other colors, it somehow all has a kind of a sense and a sensibility, just every detail. And I think he was kind of great at that. At just like every square inch of the painting could be a painting. You know, these little marks, these little lines, everything somehow in just a visual sense and in the process of application is considered. And it's because of a certain fluidity, you know, and a certain spontaneity, but it's also, you know, and he leaves stuff, but it's also, look, it's a big mess at the same time. So he just somehow balanced, intent with just letting things be. And I think that's why he's good, you know. The surface of the painting is always wonderful, interesting, and surprising. There's always surprises.
Yeah, I like this painting, I have to say.
Me too.
I do too.
But I thought first it was Asger Jorn.
You thought it was what?
Asger Jorn or whatever.
Oh.
I thought it was just.
Oh.
Jorn?
It looked like a little another artist to me. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But it's a nice painting.
It is.
You have another one to show?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, sure.
We don't run too far.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see. I don't know what's going on with these things. Why they're so. I don't know why it's so small. I don't understand that. Here's another de Kooning.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
I think de Kooning's a great colorist too.
He is, absolutely.
I mean, when
Absolutely.
I saw those, I forget where, I guess it was MoMA or the Met, they had a retrospective on him, and those women paintings,
Yeah.
and they're so terrifying, but they're so beautiful at the same time. As use of color is like spectacular, you know. Just
I like how he uses a lot of white in these paintings.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a lot of these pastels, like these light yellows are without being sweet, you know, that's what's interesting.
Yeah, no, they're not. They're beautiful.
No, it was good, yeah.
But I love his brushstrokes too, as you were saying.
Yeah, he could draw, you know, he could draw into the painting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he knew how to use yellow.
Yeah.
You know, he really was good at yellow.
It's a good yellow.
Which is not easy. It's not an easy color.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah, yellow is a great, amazing. Let's see. Hold on. I know there's
This is a good
others.
yellow painter.
Everything got.
Can I show you some Asger Jorn between?
Sure. Here, let's just look at this while it's up. 1 second,
Okay.
Hans.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. But it's it's interesting. I like this. Very interesting. It's.
I think there is something, you know, to be said about the eye, meaning just a work that exists optically for the sake of the eye, you know, without going any, you know, just looking at the way it, you know, it impacts the retina.
Absolutely.
And I think he knew something about that, you know, just, you know, like the way the little green accents here on the edges of the painting, you know, the yellow up here and down here. There's just something he knew about composition and how paintings work. You know, just on that visual level that keep your interest, that are fun to, you know, scan. This gray here is kind of great and unexpected.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just kind of thinking about what Sai was saying before.
Yeah.
You know, about how different types of art capture you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think abstract expressionism is, for me, the most exciting type of art to look at.
You know, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think most people like Impressionism today. You know, the way it's so beautiful, captures the light, landscape, scenes. But I'm with you, though. There's just something about looking at paintings like this that just talk to me,
They're very powerful.
If people that, all of you that have come to this class want to, and I think this is not unusual, see painting as a way to liberate, as a liberating activity thing. And expressionism, this kind of, painting, is sort of the essence of that, is the epitome of that, of letting it fly. And I think a lot of people see painting or, as a means to that thing. It's been a short period within the scheme of painting, within the history of painting, that painting has represented that as as a means of liberation and of freedom and expression.
The most metaphoric, I think.
What's that?
It's the most metaphoric form.
Yeah, right. But painting can be,
it
all kinds of things.
Everybody imagine.
Yeah.
But since we talked about this COBRA artist, this is for me almost, that could be for me from the COBRA group almost, this painting we just saw.
Hans, say that again. I couldn't hear you.
It's very interesting. It's an interesting painting. We just saw this
the Kooning.
Yeah, I think it was that. It's because it has also. It's not only abstract. It has some allusions to me, to very like children type of things as we saw earlier. And I want to show you now, just to look at this. It's so you can even see a figure up there or a figure down here on the. It's like it's very it alludes to.
You mean this little figure here?
Yeah, it's a very interesting painting, I think.
Yeah,
it's unusual for me.
And here there's figures.
Yeah,
it reminds me of Pompeii.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
Boy.
So I wanna show you one of artists of the COBRA group, Asger Jorn. Just to full. Let me see. I share here the thing. Hold on. Advanced. I hope it works. You see that?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Let me see if we can. Yeah. Can we?
That's great.
So
I love it.
Look at that.
Wow.
So this is one of the
great
group, Asger Jorn,
very nice.
It's very interesting too.
Yeah, totally.
This is at the Guggenheim, I think. You see Asger Jorn?
Yeah.
I think you check him out a little. I think it's really also interesting. Let me see this one.
It's very psychological.
Yeah, exactly. There is a, and has exactly, one can see the art brut movement, you know, in a way in here. Also.
But you know, it even gets into, it's more abstract, but you could see Munch in these. You know, the psychological, on the psychological, emotional level.
Yes. But you see, Creature of Jean Dubuffet, Paul Klee,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you know.
That's what you were saying.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Let me see if I find another one, maybe this one, I don't know. They are different, but it's very...
I like them a lot.
Yeah, these are great.
That's good too.
Yeah.
They are intense in a way.
Very.
You know, I mean,
Oh.
the Kooning is looser. It's looser, you know. Yeah.
Is the one at the Guggenheim?
I stop. I have to open the door for a moment. Take over, Mark. I have to open the door.
Okay. No, it's interesting. I mean, artists are, you know, there's, as you know, Hans was saying it, you know, there's elements or of Dubuffet, and in the text it said clay. I could see a little of that, but Munch. So you know, you could see how artists are picking up from other artists and are speaking to something in those other artists that resonate with them, and you know, yeah. So it's a you know, it's a visual language and a way of communicating with other artists, and I'm sure not only other artists but other artists in different areas, you know, poets, writers, etc., that are thinking similarly, and they're picking up, you know, information and integrating it and finding their own way with it.
And you know, Jean Dubuffet wrote a booklet or a whole essay about, you know, these people were against the art market and art thing, what went on at that time.
Yeah.
They didn't believe, you know, they wanted to be raw artists, something which comes out of yourself and so on, you know.
Yeah.
And we are not aware when we're looking at things, you know, that they have sometimes completely different intentions than what we actually project on them, you know, like they, you know, they became great and collected in museums because of their statement, which were against the institution. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing sometimes.
Maybe we need a great statement.
Yeah. No, we have one, 911 for painting.
Oh, that's right.
Let's see what else we have here.
But this is a great piece. I like this Kooning very much. This is very, very, it has even a humorous touch in there almost. I mean, it could be also hell, you know, because it's...
That's what I thought. That's exactly what I was thinking.
You burn in hell or whatever.
Absolutely.
You could somehow...
This is kind of amazing. This is also a de Kooning. I mean, he didn't do a lot of sculpture, but, you know, we were talking about sculpture before and painting. I think he did these actually small maquettes, and then they were enlarged.
Blown up, exactly.
They were blown up. But this thing is huge. I'm going to show you another picture where you can see how big this thing is, if I can find it.
That is, by the way, this is very interesting because there are artists like Urs Fischer, contemporary artist, you know, which makes the same thing, like small things blowing up, and then he sends it to some foundries which make it 20 times bigger, and you sell it for 10 million or whatever.
That's what this is. That's
Dine's collector.
Yeah. See, because these paintings on the wall, all these paintings are 6 feet by 8 feet. They're big paintings.
Yeah.
And this thing is huge. It's just dominates the room.
Looks a little scary.
Well, has
Yeah,
some presence.
I know.
I love the lighting on it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's a lot. It's like, but you see, that's also his way of thinking, which comes through in painting and in sculpting, you know. I don't know exactly David Smith. I don't know him but I have to study him. But here, the sculpture and the painting have a direct connection.
Oh, yeah.
And in David Smith, it's maybe not a connection.
It's not.
It's not at all. It's another thing.
It's not at all.
Yeah, it's another thing.
It was another thing completely.
Yeah, So you see how art is so different.
Absolutely.
And nothing is
we
bad
saw
about
that
it.
one. We saw that. We saw that.
Mark,
so
do you
we
want to show us your show that you saw in New York?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to show us your show in New York?
That would be great, Mark.
Yeah, show us your show.
How about next week? Because I have to upload.
Thing.
I don't have that many photos from it.
Yes.
But I will.
When
I can
was
upload.
the opening last week? Or
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
How was it, Mark? Tell us. Good vibes.
It was really fun. It was great. It was really fun. It was a group show, of artists from downtown, people that I hadn't seen maybe for 20 years. You know what I mean? So many of them were included. It was, I think it was a certain level. The event was a lot of fun. It was a good turnout, a lot of people, and the gallery looked pretty good. And we're going to do it again. There's going to be another show that's opening if anyone's in New York. Hans, I don't know if you're up for that. Oh, you're not even in New York. What am I thinking?
No.
That's right. Yeah, there's another show.
You could make a Zoom and we can make a meeting from the gallery next week.
Yeah.
How about that? Would be great.
I'm looking forward to getting an invitation to that one.
Linda, you are?
Yeah, the upcoming one. Yes, please.
I'll send you one.
Yeah.
You don't follow me on Instagram?
Yes. I've been on it in a while. I better go. Okay.
Yeah, because I've been promoting it on Instagram, but whatever. I'll send you it.
What's the name of the gallery, Mark?
Well, the gallery that's opening is called Helm Contemporary, HELM, and it's on Bowery. I'll send everyone a link, a poster.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's exciting. Mark. Thank you.
It was really, really fun. And, it was fun, having a painting in New York and with a bunch of artists. And it was very, very supportive, very nice environment. We'll see what happens. Maybe
you'll show us your work next week?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I love this de Kooning painting. I'm just blocking out just one element, just to see what the painting would look like without one of its elements, and it just doesn't work.
Right.
Every element is needed.
That's so important. That's really, yeah.
And I was a little at first taken aback by, the large orange, and then to the left of it, it looks like a nose, somebody, and it looks almost like it was the last thing he painted, which one of my teachers is like the biggest no. That looks like the last thing that you painted. You've got to do something with it. But it does look like that, but the composition is just so appealing.
Right. That's right.
It's like it's one of those.
But you know, but you're really on the right track because you know, you're you know, what's the word? Your awareness of that or noticing that every aspect of the painting holds the paint is what, you know, is the painting and holds that painting together. Every single part of it is important. I mean, it's, you know, this may be a large painting, but it's a small surface, really. You know, everything means something, you know, visually on that surface. It all has to work. And so you're absolutely correct. And, you know, that last thing, of course, you don't want it to be the last thing, you know? It wants to be a whole. It wants to be a organic, complete whole. At least those are some of the, you know, you can reject some of that, I guess, in certain kinds of painting, but.
In the upper left-hand corner, I'm sorry.
No, go on, Phyllis, go on.
There's a triangle that all art teachers tell you never to do.
Right. Yeah.
In the upper left?
Yep.
Yeah.
The ochre triangle.
I think he was certainly not a student of the art students, and because
look at this.
That's early.
Certain things. No,
that's an early de Kooning.
Yeah. It's very nice.
Yes, I really like that. What year is this? What year is this, Mark?
It's, I think it's 42, it says.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I think 42. Is that what it says down there?
I think that's also, that's very interesting because of the drippings in here.
No, I'm not sure. No, it couldn't be that early. It couldn't be 42. I'm incorrect. I don't know what the year is.
But it looks early, I'm sure.
I like the scumbling in there, you know, the scumbling of the paint.
Yeah.
But you see, once you have just a black dot in there, you know, it's immediately an eye or whatever, you know. It's always.
Oh, yeah.
It becomes like, you know, it's very interesting that
yeah.
we are always sucked in with a black dot somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like a hurricane. It's like the eye of the tornado, you know, which sucks.
Yeah. Well, that's something I think you could eliminate without destroying the painting. That eye.
So I think
nothing.
I want to show you some paintings that are as free,
yes,
but coming from the Duchampian lineage, and that would be Picabia. So he was every bit as free, if not more, than de Kooning, but he was free, you know, intellectually. Even though he wasn't, you know, these paintings are not intellectual per se, you know what I mean? They're just fun. But conceptually, how about that? They're totally free. He could do anything. Like, look at, he even painted the frame.
Cerebral.
Okay.
Intellectual and cerebral is maybe different things.
Yeah, cerebral. Yeah. So look at, he even painted the frame, you know?
It's funny.
And he reduced the painting to just,
It looks like a calder to me.
Well,
yeah, it looks like those hanging things, yeah. But this is...
But calder did exist, but not yet.
No, calder didn't exist yet in that sense. But yeah, but calders always refer to nature, and this refers to basically nothing, you know, but painting. So let's look at a few Picabias.
Last one I find interesting in that his signature is larger than one of the elements in his painting.
Right, his signature is always there.
Signature is part of the painting.
Absolutely.
But that's consciously made like that, you know. consciously, you know. I think that's...
Yeah. Oh, look at this. Interesting. Wow.
No,
so we'll just go through some of these so you can see.
Ah, look at
This is sort of the most literal painting that I've ever seen of his, called The Dance.
But there are many elements you see also in Picasso and everywhere, Cubism and blah, blah, you know.
Yeah.
It's everything merged together, mixed together. Look how that's it's nice.
That's a beauty.
Yeah, it is.
Ooh. Ah.
Wow.
I think he was maybe like Eric Satie in music. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Certain, you know, a certain humor, a
Yes.
certain simplicity, but at the same time, very interesting, simple things. And, you know, you could read his work almost like as a tragic artist, you know, which he played, you know, the tragic artist.
Yes.
Whatever. You know. So there are many options as an artist, how you present yourself, what you paint or what you do. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole package, you know, you know, you become a package. Bode package, for instance. No, you know what I'm saying? Or I mean, you know, for everyone, it's like that. You know, once you become famous, for instance, you are a package, because you have to know about the life, you have to know about this and this and this and this. You know, it's a whole thing. You know, and it makes sense for everyone. You know, suddenly everything makes sense. Even nonsense makes sense. You know. Yeah, that's important. You know?
It's interesting how looking at the art, I had started a painting in my garage, another painting, and I thought it was coming out great. And then I saw de Kooning's excavation, and I went in my garage and it's like totally wiped out. But now I'm seeing something else, and it's interesting how a visual or a feeling comes into you just by looking at something else and completely changes what you were doing. It's exciting, you know?
Yes. Mark, I like that Picabia at the end of our session. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can you hold that a minute?
Sure, sure.
Oh boy,
fantastic! I like it.
This was a very large painting for him. I would say this is probably maybe 4 feet high by you know, 36 inches wide or something.
Yeah.
And it's sort of more painted. It's more like the light is accurate. You know, it's like there's light, you know, in this painting as opposed to just paint. So he was going for some, you know, actual, you know, verisimilitude or some real, you know, naturalistic effects.
Exactly. It could be a metal thing, you know, which, you know, it looks like photographically. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But it's so enigmatic at the same time, you know, that kind of irony that he was so good at.
Yeah, but everything is in there, you know. You can see an uterus, you know, you can see, you know, a female.
My name is Doug Dowdy. I'm the health reporter.
Everything, you know. I mean,
mask. Yeah.
There is
a mask.
Deep
like a medieval mask, like armor.
Right.
Medieval. Yeah.
Everything is in there.
Yeah.
By the way, the Calder period does overlap with.
Yeah, I guess it would. Yeah.
Okay.
40s, 50s.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They might have seen each other's work.
Well, he was in Paris, Calder.
Yeah, but
for a long time.
But still, I argue. I mean, some, you know, red dots and green dots.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with Calder. That's already much earlier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You made a
Actually,
connection.
not much earlier, but their dates overlap. They were working
I know, but
at the same time,
yeah,
late
but
40s, early 50s.
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, these dots are they are from 1901. You know, I mean, you know.
Sometimes there's, you know, there's an apparent synchronicity.
It
You know what I mean?
like,
But they're on two different lines completely.
Oh
no,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Brain, you triggered it with you connected this with Calder.
Mm-hmm.
But this has no, I mean, you know what I'm saying, this has nothing to do with Calder. This has to do with earlier work of people which did some
This is very Dada, you know, just the whole
Russian suprematism and so on.
Yes, sort of.
Those things and not with Calder.
Yeah.
You know. You know what I'm saying? Even it looks like a Calder hanging in the air, but that's not the idea.
Right. But who knows what Calder's influences were also, you know? It might have been Russian suprematism.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, he was more, I think, influenced by someone like Miro, just with flatness, with those kind of forms, you know, and then of course, you know, his invention of
I think he was
mobile.
He was involved. Calder was interested in moving sculptures.
Yeah.
And he made
the mobiles.
Stabiles and mobiles.
That's right.
Now, stabiles means it comes from
Stabile.
From the mobiles
from the ground.
Hanging.
Stabile is from the ground.
You know,
this is great. Can you go back one? Oh, that's the look at that.
Yeah, that's nice.
The funny thing about the funny thing about this painting is really it's so I can't think of another word, bad, you know? It's like he didn't try. There's no attempt to be, you know, a master or a great painter or to show how good he is or to show his facility. It's just, you know, it absolutely removed all of those, you know, elements, those expectations of what an artist is supposed to do or should, you know, none of that. There's no touch per se, you know, or.
But listen, what I think in a way, he maybe, you know, he's like a chameleon. How you say chameleon?
Yeah, chameleon. Yeah.
The point is, he had so much, you know, he was not copying something.
Right.
He was really creating something, and he had the abilities to be in different bodies or in different personalities, and this is a great piece. I think it's just a great invention. You know what I'm saying? And
it's just funny
that he did that because he had maybe a problem of identity, maybe you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It could be.
It's hilarious. It's so
people
funny.
have identity problems, and in this case, it is very wonderful output of. I don't know. I'm saying just something like that. You know, this comes from deep inside. It's not just surface. I think.
I think he was just very free. And I think if he could, and I think that if he connected or expressed something deep within, it's because he was very free. I don't think it was self-conscious in that respect. You know, I think that just by virtue of being open, you know, things could emerge, things that suggested other things. You know, I'm not sure that he, you know, was concerned, aware, or concerned with, you know, any kind of deeper level. I think he was just having fun and free and playing.
Can we go on? Can we see the next?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, and then we have to, I think, soon.
That
looks like the American flag. Looks cool.
Yes.
It looks like an Arthur Dove or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like how his paintings always end up being objects. He had that sort of Dada sensibility that these things are discrete things. Painting is a thing, and it's, you know, a furnishing even. It needs a frame, and it goes on a wall, and it's, you know, and it's sort of provocative. It's a provocative piece of furniture. It's like Satie in that sense. Satie was very much like that. I mean, he invented furniture music, which was a forerunner to Muzak.
Absolutely.
Furniture music. Oh, boy.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. He had musicians stationed in the four corners of a room with the demand that nobody listen to the music. Don't listen to the music. That was the suggestion.
Yeah, the important thing, right? Yeah.
Just like, you know, you don't pay attention to it, you know, a table in the room. You just, it's there, right? Furniture music.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's good.
So they were surrealists. They were Dada, you know, coming from Dada.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mark, I think we have so many things to look at. Maybe we should now.
Okay. So let me end this.
I have to just, I'm not fading out, but I have to.
Sure. Well, it's close to the time, but I'm going to thank everyone who joined us today. Not only, we can stay, but we're going to end the recording.
We say goodbye to our audience.
We say goodbye to our audience.
Our international audience.
Yeah. So here we